Welcome to the real zombie apocalypse.
Zombie comedies are almost as old as the zombie horror genre, and We're Zombies attempts to add to the portfolio with its unique world building and comical narrative. The makers of classics like Turbo Kid and Summer of '84 get together to create this fast-paced zombie comedy, and the story is loosely based on the popular comic series titled The Zombies That Ate the World. What is particularly impressive about the narrative is the unique take on zombies and a twist that fans don't really expect from such movies. In this video, we will take you through a detailed breakdown of the movie and also elaborate on the nature of the zombies that are shown in this film.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Very much. No! What the hell, dude?
What makes the premise of We Are Zombies different from average zombie flicks? When we think of zombies, the first image that comes to mind is that of a ferocious flesh-eating monstrosity that creates a threat for humanity. This is cast aside in the initial moments of the movie, which throws a unique premise that is rarely seen in zombie dramas. The story is set in a futuristic world which has been overrun by an abundance of zombies. However, they're not your flesh-eating violent creatures and simply annoying and silly undead fellows roaming the streets. They look like a regular zombie but do not behave like one, and the movie spares some time to explain how they do not pose a threat to humans. The very first scene shows one of the protagonists, Freddy, grabbing some food from a joint when a zombie creeps up to him begging for scraps. We're also introduced to Freddy's geeky friend Carl, and we immediately get some Dumb and Dumber vibes between the two. In this bizarre world, the zombie population has become a problem for humanity because they have caused an uncontrollable population explosion. Random members of the dead have started to reappear in the society as zombies, and they are a menace to the societal structure because they fail to fit in. On the other hand, they are stealing the menial jobs because of their hard-working nature. As pointed out by a worker, the zombies don't sleep at all and have taken his job of a cleaner. And in this case, in such situations, there are people in favor of rights of the zombies and those who want them gone. And the protesters seeking zombie rights want them to be referred as living impaired because calling them undead is offensive. In this bizarre futuristic world, Freddy and Carl are part of a secret team that also includes Carl's foul-mouthed sister Maggie. Coleman Mega Corporation is a massive company that researches on zombies, and one of their divisions is called Coleman's Retirement Services for the Living Impaired, where people can call them in to take away undead family members. Freddy and Carl pose as workers of this organization, and Maggie hacks into their database to intercept their calls. The unlikely trio then plans a heist where Carl and Freddy take away the undead individual before members of Coleman's Retirement Services can reach the spot. They can then sell these zombies to certain buyers such as Dawn, who happens to be a shady art gallery manager who works with art created from zombie parts.
Present Project Zoltan.
How did the fake zombie exterminators land themselves in trouble? Well, this is a world where employment is hard to come by, especially for dummies like Carl and Freddy, but posing as zombie exterminators earns them a living for a while. However, Coleman Corporation soon takes notice of their missing orders after getting duped by the trio a few times. The chief of security, Hannity, puts in a stern word of caution for Stan, who works for him. He warns Stan that failing to resolve the situation will attract penalties, that he will have to pay the company out of his own pockets to compensate for the loss. In desperation, Stan comes up with a clever plan to apprehend those stealing his consignments. He puts out a fake call in the name of Coleman Corporation, and as always, Maggie intercepts the same and puts Freddy and Carl on the job. However, when they reach an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere, they're caught red-handed by Stan and his co-worker. He threatens them with dire consequences in case they fail to deliver the money that they technically owe Coleman Corporation, which is $50,000. To make it binding, Stan even kidnaps Freddy's grandmother and demands the money as compensation for all their lost deals in the past. Now, Freddy, Maggie, and Carl are no millionaires, and they barely make a living with these heists. They certainly don't have that kind of money with them, and they're caught in a fix while trying to gather the hefty amount. This peculiar crisis lands them in serious trouble, and the next part of the movie is all about them trying to get out of this sticky situation.
Yeah, come at me. How am I supposed supposed to do now?
Okay, we charge.
How do Freddy, Carl, and Maggie handle the situation? With no way of getting $50,000 to retrieve their grandmother, Carl and Maggie decide to turn to Don, who is usually the one who buys the zombies from them after their heists. After learning about their predicament, Don takes them to his boss, who turns out to be a shady billionaire, Otto Maddox. Otto is into collecting rare items, and currently his eyes are set on retrieving Zelvirella, a popular beauty queen. He wants her for one of his parties, and he assigns the task to the trio, succeeding which they would get $50,000 as their reward. However, there is one small problem for Freddy, Carl, and Maggie. Zelvirella is long dead, and retrieving her undead corpse turns out to be more than they have bargained for. Firstly, when they reach the cemetery where her grave is, they find out that her corpse has decomposed beyond recognition. Secondly, they are spotted by the security forces of Coleman, who open fire on them, prompting their hasty retreat. However, there is still a simple fix for their problems, and the solution lies in one of Carl's not-so-secret fantasies. Carl is fascinated by a Zelvirella zombie cosplayer named Jane, and earlier he has spent a majority of his earnings to pay for his favorite cam girl. As it turns out, even in this new dystopian world, only fans reign supreme and earns a significant living. Size for humanity. In this crisis, it occurs to them that Jane can pose as Zelvirella, and they plan a daring mission to break her out. It is a hilarious moment as Carl, Freddy, and Maggie head to Jane's location, and they discover that she is managed by a pimp. Because of his generous donations in the past, Carl is allowed easy access to Jane, and he uses the opportunity to convince her to escape with him. They all flee in their van and even run over a zombie accidentally, and yet another comical sequence. Finally, they convince Jane to go with them to Otto's gallery and reach the billionaire collector to secure their prize money. However, there is a nasty climatic twist waiting for them. What is the real face of Coleman Corporation? How does Project Zoltan bring about the real zombie threat? If you think that the movie is all about the hilarious moments and comedy of errors, you're gravely mistaken, because the final segment of the film introduces the real threat. It all starts with Hannity's severe hate for the zombies, but we see early signs when the real face of Coleman Corporation is revealed. While they promise retirement services for the zombies to relieve the public, the real purpose behind taking in these living impaired individuals is to conduct various experiments on them. Contrary to their claim of providing them with a comfortable life of dignity, the living impaired are subjected to torture and experimentation while being held in cages. We are introduced to the twist in the tale when Hannity reveals his plans in front of the board of directors of Coleman Corporation. He suggests that zombies will finally outnumber humans if they are not stopped soon. And he also presents his deterrent method, which comes as a shocker for the CEO Bob Coleman. Hannity presents Project Zoltan, which is a sinister plan to change the perception of the world about zombies. He believes that the only reason zombie sympathizers exist is because they don't deem zombies as a threat. He has come up with a poisonous gas that has a strange effect on zombies and turns them violent and feral, similar to their stereotypical nature. Hannity claims that if implemented on a global scale, this could change the perception of zombies in the society and lead to severe zombie extermination drives. He wants the policy of coexistence and tolerance with the living impaired to be a thing of the past, but his extremist ideas turn out to be the cause of a great disaster. Bob Coleman, the CEO of the company, is not happy with his work and decides to pull the funding on Hannity, but the latter turns out to be more determined than we had assumed. He turns Bob into a zombie and then infects him with a gas, which makes him the first violent zombie. Hannity then proceeds to take over the company, and his next target is Otto Maddox's art gallery, where he plans to spread the gas and infect many other living impaired as part of his grand plan. How the conspiracy turns into an uncontrollable zombie apocalypse. Ending explained. With so much happening in this fast-paced narrative, there are a couple of important details that missed our attention. In a comical twist, Carl and Maggie's grandmother is accidentally shot and turns into a zombie, and Stan manages to keep it a secret from the trio so that they'd continue their efforts to bring him the money. On the other hand, Freddy's smitten by Maggie big time, but she does not reciprocate his feelings. Also, Carl and Jane develop a strange bond ever since he helped her break out of a room where she was controlled by her manager. Ever since they helped her escape, there has been a citywide search for them, and since Jane is a willing participant in their plan, things take an interesting turn. On the day of the grand party, people and zombies arrive by the hundreds, and Otto's gallery is a happening hotspot. Otto himself is delighted to have Jane without the slightest idea that she is not the real deal. He honors the deal by giving Maggie and her gang the promised amount, but Carl is heartbroken about the prospect of losing Jane. He intends begins to reveal the truth about her that she's only a Zelberella cosplayer. But things take an unplanned turn when Hannity releases the poisonous gas in the gallery. Every one of the zombies present at the party turns into monstrous and violent versions of themselves, and the bloodbath that follows sees all the humans like Maddox himself turn into zombies. It is a chaotic showdown as Maggie, Carl, Freddy, and Jane manage to hold their own in this fight for survival. Freddy shows his heroics by slaughtering several zombies to protect Maggie, and Carl takes down a zombie-like creature that looks like the Shogun warriors in Mortal Kombat. As for Hannity, his plan has worked just fine, and he manipulates the media narrative to brand the group responsible for the Maddox Gallery massacre. It becomes clear to Maggie that Hannity wants them to take the blame for his sinister plans, and meanwhile, Hannity, Stan, and other members of his team arrive to ensure that things go according to their plans. Stan briefly tries to betray Hannity, but he fails and gets knocked out. While Carl and Freddy try to deal with Hannity, the latter gets shot in the chest, and a zombified Hannity is decapitated by Maggie. It is a relief when we find out that the engagement ring that Freddy saved for Maggie has saved his life and deflected the bullet, but the troubles for the group are far from over. In all this chaos, Stan manages to steal the $50,000, but he ends up with a bite from a severed zombie head while escaping. Maggie, Carl, Freddy, and Jane are taken into custody and charged as the culprits behind the entire incident, but there is another twist in store when what started as a small incident ends up blowing into a widespread zombie outbreak. This time around, the zombies are not just there to hang around and do menial work, but they are after the flesh of the living. It is suggested that the entire world is impacted by the effects of the poisonous gas developed by Hannity, and there are only a few survivors remaining, our protagonists included. Finally, when they all manage to break free, Carl, Jane, Maggie, and Freddy reunite with their zombie grandmother, who still has not turned feral and violent. The last scene shows them all held up in a diner, and hordes of zombies have lined up outside. Even Stan has turned into one of them, and he still holds the money that he had stolen. Only money will do him no good now. Exploring the nature of the zombies in the movie. How do they turn into zombies? There is not enough evidence or explanation to clarify how one turns into zombies in the movie. It is probably suggested that just about anyone who is killed can turn into a zombie. It can be because of a virus or a special condition, but we lack information to comment on the same. Stan's partner, Maggie's grandmother, and the CEO of Coleman all turn into zombies after they are killed, and we don't know if a natural death also turns people into the living impaired. Also, there is evidence that some people are also coming back from their graves, while some others are dug up and revealed to be in a living dead situation. As for the nature of the zombies, they are extremely stupid and not capable of anything that requires advanced intelligence. Some of them are sillier than others, which results in a great imbalance, while some zombies are good enough to be a part of news programs, are just behaving like the homeless and wander around. They lack the sensations of pain and do not have any emotions as such. However, it all changes once they are affected by the poisonous gas. Once they turn feral, they are just as violent and deadly as we know zombies to be. That being said, the zombies are by no means invincible, and they can be killed if they are burned or decapitated. The severed head might be alive, but even that can be destroyed with a proper hit, as shown by our protagonist. Why did Mrs. Nerd not turn into a feral zombie? Now, this is quite an unexplained little moment in the movie because Mrs. Nerd, or Carl and Maggie's grandmother, never turns into a feral zombie. This could probably be because she is away from the effect of the poisonous gas, but that does seem unlikely given how it has already been a global outbreak. Does she have a different build compared to the other zombies? While this hasn't been answered in the movie, we expect a clearer picture in the sequel. Also, it will be quite interesting if Mrs. Nerd turns out to be the key to undo the process because of her genetic build. If she is immune to the virus, then a cure can be developed from her to restore the peaceful zombies that we saw at the beginning of the movie. Will there be a We Are Zombies 2? What can we expect from the sequel? From the way the movie has been created, it is quite clear that the makers are leaving room for a sequel. In fact, it will be unfair if a sequel doesn't explain a lot of random events because the movie individually leaves a lot of loose ends. If there would be a sequel, we can expect that to be more of a traditional zombie flick, where the protagonists will have to survive against hundreds and thousands of vicious zombies. Also, they might try to come up with a cure that can restore the proper world order and take the zombies back to their original, non-violent self. Given that Granny has been left in perfect order even after the poisonous gas outbreak, she can be a key character in the next movie, and we hope the movie is popular enough to stir up fan demands for a proper sequel to complete the story. Marvel's verdict: far too much wasted potential. When it comes to We Are Zombies, the movie ticks all the right boxes and yet fails to become an unforgettable experience. The storyline is innovative, the characters are quirky, the twists are fun, and there are enough funny bits wedged into the narrative. However, the problem lies in the execution, which fails to put everything together. One of the main issues with the movie is the short runtime of only around 80 minutes, which is just not enough time to explain everything. We don't get a clear picture of how the entire zombie situation came into existence, and we're also left on a cliffhanger, probably because the makers want to bring in a sequel at some point. The zombie effects, however, are on point, and there are plenty of impressive moments in the movie that make for a fun viewing. All in all, you can enjoy the movie with low expectations and settle for a mindless entertainer instead of aiming for a cult classic, which it is clearly not, even though the concept had potential. Do let us know about your thoughts on the movie in the comments below, and also share your opinion on the nature of the zombies and your views on how the world will deal with a widespread zombie apocalypse.
If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.